Hi everyone and welcome back to the first ever 外国人介绍台湾新闻 travel edition, where we talk with YouTubers from all around the world about what is up here in Taiwan. No former introduction needed, I think. Prosy, Alan, links down in the description. What has been the biggest news here in Taiwan this month?
The new president, probably.
Yeah.
And all the things that come with that, with air drills and the...
Fighting in Parliament has been a big news. It was a little bit embarrassing for Taiwanese Parliament, although I will disagree and say it's not embarrassing. It shows a level of passion and care for the reforms, and people actually want to fight about something they believe in.
Disagree. That guy who stole the vote box and ran out the side. This is a democracy, sir. You can't just steal. That is the most communist thing I've ever seen a Taiwanese parliament member do. I don't know, is it a parliament? I don't even know.
New president here in Taiwan. What are your thoughts and how has that affected your personal life so far?
Absolutely no effect whatsoever.
Well, I called him and congratulated him. He said thanks. No effect. I don't know anything about the guy. We can't vote, so it doesn't...
That was my follow-up question. As foreigners in Taiwan, we are not allowed to vote.
Yeah.
Is it still important that we care about politics, these elections, and like who the president is?
It's a good question because in China, they've never been able to vote throughout their entire history, basically. I mean, for the person who runs the country, they've always had a dynasty. They don't care who runs the country until, of course, they do, right? Like, if they want a new government, there'll be a revolt. There won't be, like, a voting process. So it's kind of the same thing for us. It's like, it's a good question to ask. Like, we can't vote, so why should we care who's the next president? We can't affect it.
You've only lived here during the DPP's reign. Reign? Can you say reign?
Yeah.
But I've lived here for the Kuomintang era of 2008 to 2012. And I have to say, personally, I didn't notice any difference whatsoever. I'm sure there were lots of laws and regulations and import-export things that were different. But personally, as a foreigner in Taiwan, it just goes over your head. And if you do have an opinion, you have to be very confident in expressing it, because some other foreigner that's more knowledgeable than you or a Taiwanese will break down your argument very quickly and very succinctly if you don't know exactly what you're talking about. So it's easier just to stay out of it.
Comparing like the previous president, Tsai Ing-wen, with William Lai. What's your first impressions, first thoughts?
I love him so much, I got his name tattooed on my wrist.
Mr. Lai? Yeah.
Just William. Yeah, Mr. Lai.
It's a bit like an Obama-Biden situation, right?
Yeah. Let's wait and see if he makes any big changes. He did apparently use the word China to describe China, which is something that's not often done. They usually could talk about Dalu, and that really angered the CPP. There's so many letters, CCP. That's why they ramped up their military drills around the Air Defense International Zone, or whatever it's called, so...
It doesn't really matter to us. And it also seems like in this situation, it is just a continuation of Tsai Ing-wen policies. I don't know, and I'm not expressing any personal political opinions here. I think the Kuomintang, they're not in a good situation right now. They're winning local elections pretty effectively. The last one they had, I don't think the DPP won very many areas, but on like a federal level, or I don't know how you would describe that, they're just not popular with people. They don't resonate with young people. They don't have a good understanding of what a lot of people want here, I think. And I think they had to be very careful, because I was talking to a few Taiwanese friends of mine who are probably late 30s, 40s, and they were saying like a younger generation of Taiwanese kids are being very heavily influenced by Chinese social media, and they're using different words that they only use in China, and it's now soaking into Taiwan. And I think that Taiwan has to be extremely careful of those kind of gray zone tactics where they're being influenced to think more like Chinese people without even really understanding it, right? They just look at social media and they like it and it's funny, and they don't see it happening actively, but it's something that's creeping into the subconscious of the Taiwanese. I nailed that.
Yeah.
What'd you say? What?
Yeah.
As you said in the beginning, like we had a new president, and then also this chaos in the legislative
guys. Oh yeah, in the legislative yuan.
In legislative yuan. Do you have any thoughts about that?
What was it about? It was something like the Kuomintang and the TPT. Is that what it is? They want to expand powers given to them, or
in the legislative yuan.
Right, and I think they're trying to expand what powers they have. I think. Please include that in this video. Don't cut that out. I think.
That is correct. I don't know if that's everything, but that's definitely part of it.
I think it's really embarrassing to have... I don't know if that's what the fight was about. I know they're protesting it. Are those two different things?
Reform.
So the fight was about that, and actually yesterday, as we're recording this, it got passed. So right. It's like three. They had to confirm it like 3 times. Yesterday, they actually confirmed it for the 3rd time. So now it is in effect, unless it getting overruled by another third party.
But was the fight in the legislative UN and these protests about the same reform?
Yes.
Are those the same thing?
Yes.
Okay. I think the fight itself is really embarrassing. I think if you're going to call yourself the bastion of democracy in Asia, you have to take yourself extremely seriously. And when you do that, it's like a joke. If you're looking for American backing or Australian backing or Japan or whatever, you want other countries to come and help you in the event of whatever, that's just, it's embarrassing. It's like children.
I get that it's embarrassing, but I do want to say that it's also like admirable that people can lose control over something they believe. What are you going to do if you come up against an immovable force that refuses to accept the way that you want to do something?
You're gonna throw a chair across the room? Is
People
that the
lose
result?
control
Are
of
you
it?
kidding me? Like, I spent years teaching kindergarten, so this thing doesn't happen to adults, and now I got a room full of people who control the country doing it. It's embarrassing. It's like, this is serious. This is
Exactly right. So if someone wants to take away your big pink ice cream,
yeah.
what would you do?
I'm not going to throw a chair across the room or
Are
steal
you
a
going
voting
to use
box.
physical force to keep
No,
it back? Just going to
no.
let them take it?
Yeah, it's
You're
just
just
a
gonna
milkshake.
You're just going to be walked over for your milkshake that you've worked hard for?
I'm not going to get walked over, but I don't think that...
I would
think
love
you
it
could
if I had the balls to just pour his milkshake on the
all
floor.
over my- yeah.
I would love it. It's only 150. Oh no, I can't do it. That would be too crazy content for Lukas.
I think that these things are like extremely seriously. You have to have a democratic process that you trust, and if it doesn't go your way, that's democracy. You don't get to have a temper tantrum in the highest level of government just because it doesn't go your way.
Everyone has their own boiling point. Everyone has their own line that can't be crossed, and
Yeah,
some
you
of those.
don't belong in the government, in my opinion. I don't think police officers should have that mentality. Do you?
Next question,
Yeah.
which was maybe the biggest news in Swedish news lately. It's the new
Meatballs?
new vegetarian meatballs.
Sorry, man.
The new exercise from China surrounding the island and doing exercise blockage of Taiwan.
I didn't even know. My mom called me and said, oh my God, because she's seen it on the news, and like she knew before I did.
That was exactly what I wanted to bring up, because at least my life up in Taipei, like you would not know that this happened, like nothing. And the way I found out about it was that my mom was sharing Swedish news where it literally said, like the article, the headlines were, China wants to make Taiwan a dead island.
Oh, really?
As in, like,
Ghost Island.
As in like they're blocking it, but yeah, in Swedish you can translate it to like a dead island,
Yeah.
which when my mom reads about that, it's like nuclear bombs and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
That's like how I heard about it. Like it has to go through Swedish news and my mom that tells me,
Yeah, I think Western media tends to sensationalize things a lot more.
Western YouTubers as well.
True, yeah. And I'm sure it happens. And I'm sure it happens in Taiwanese news, but we don't get to see Taiwanese news.
Not so much, no, yeah.
There was an Indonesian man, I believe, tried to smuggle in some bento boxes with pork and chicken, I believe,
Yeah.
Into Indonesia or into Taiwan?
into Taiwan.
Taiwan.
Oh, how dare he!
Pork in it. There's a pork
It was
product in
pork, and he was fined 200,000 Taiwanese dollars, which he could not pay, meaning that he then got deported back home again. I believe that he had bought everything in Hong Kong, and then because he couldn't pay the fine, he then got sent back again, either back home to Indonesia or back to Hong Kong.
Did he get to keep his bentos?
Actually, I don't think the news article mentioned this, so I think that's up for interpretation, as they say.
I can sympathize with the man because I'm retarded and I can't figure. I saw some of the comments under this news story that was saying it's posted everywhere at the airport that you cannot bring pork into Taiwan. How do you not know this? But I guess if you're starting in Hong Kong and you bought it in the airport, you just assume.
I read this and I was like, you know, the Indonesian man, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, you should know that you cannot bring it in. But then I read like he came from Hong Kong, and like in Hong Kong airport, they have these like night market stands.
Oh, okay.
And in the airport on the stands, they literally say like, you can bring this on the plane. So you can bring like the Hong Kong, like, you know, the sambal fan, like duck and like pork chop, whatever. And
Right.
they promote it as this is safe to bring on the plane. And I have done it myself, specifically from Hong Kong. I bought it, brought it on the plane. I forgot to eat it because I fell asleep right away. And then I have like thrown it out just
okay.
before I came to the customs in Taiwan.
So the pork entered Taiwan.
No,
I think Lukas has just crucified himself
Yeah,
on
it-
national
no,
news.
it didn't enter the customs. So it was not into Taiwan.
They do have an amnesty
Yeah,
box where
you
you
can throw
like,
it away
liquids or
before you
water
get
and
there.
stuff.
But that was my other thing too, because like 200,000, you cannot pay it, you get sent back, you know, like same day.
Yeah, that's like a week's salary as a YouTuber, isn't it?
Like maybe there's something they're missing here, and there's a reason why fine is so high.
What, a swine flu? If you bring that into Taiwan and it gets into the pork system of Taiwan, billions of dollars of old pig starts having to wear masks.
That was an amazing transition, because the last piece of news that I found for this month, how excited are you that we are finally over COVID here in Taiwan?
What do you mean finally? I was over COVID in 2021.
Because this month, as far as my research goes, this was the last COVID restriction ending.
Hospitals, right?
With you no longer need to wear masks at hospital.
Oh, okay.
That was May 19th.
I was in hospital yesterday and they made me wear a mask. Oh, it's because I was ugly, that's what they said, yeah.
You're making all the other patients sick. That was it.
That's true, yeah.
Still recommended.
Yeah.
And it's still up to the hospital to make their own rules.
Oh, okay, but it's not legislative now.
It's not legislative. It's not the law right now.
Okay.
So it's been over 1,000 days. But now I think that was like the last piece of COVID restrictions.
We did it.
So we're officially COVID-free.
Finally.
We beat the China virus.
I just wanted one last summary.
Yeah.
Now when everything is officially over, how do you think Taiwan compared with your own countries when it comes to COVID-19 5 years ago?
Well, we had a whole trucker convoy protest in my country for forcing certain people to take the vaccine. Here in Taiwan, they forced everyone to wear masks and pretty much get the jab or you'd lose your job, and there wasn't really any protest. And that leads into the conversation that a lot of conservatives have. Again, you've got this country which was born out of a civil war fighting the communists. Then you go through 40, 50 years of martial law and white terror and Kuomintang dictatorship. You'd think that they would be very wary of governments forcing them to do things they don't really want to do, but apparently nobody gives a shit. So that shocked me.
Put your mask on, shut up.
Yeah, it's just like, are you kidding me? I was on Lukas's channel right in the thick of it, and I was making some controversial statements like, is this as big of a deal? And it wasn't. Yeah, there you go. 2 years wasted.
How about the UK?
Well, the UK dealt with it terribly from a government perspective. They wasted a lot of money trying to come up with random systems and apps and registration systems to increase social distancing. And again, like Prozzy says, it eventually turned out that it was not as much of a, well, of course, lots of people died, which is terrible, but it turned out not to be a bigger problem as it may have needed to be. The thing me and Prozzy kind of disagree with is, if the government tell me to do something for the benefits of other people, I tend to think that's a good thing. Even if it might be a little bit controlling or a little bit communistic, would you say?
Sure.
Whereas the majority of British people are more of Prozzy's thinking, where it's like, don't tell me what to do, I'll do what I want, and if I get sick, I don't care, or I'll take that responsibility on myself. Whereas the general population of Taiwan tends to be a little bit more obedient. Some people might say a little bit too obedient or a little bit too willing to listen to the government, but I just think if it's going to stop my mate's nan dying, I'll just wear a mask.
There's also another element that I know people are going to bring up in your comments is like the mask situation specifically is more of a cultural thing here, because people were wearing masks before COVID.
And still are a lot.
And still are everywhere, so they don't really care that much. It wasn't that big of an ask.
People in the UK were getting bullied or like physically assaulted for wearing masks. People like tourists, like Asian tourists would be getting bullied or blamed for bringing the virus. And if they're wearing a mask, it's like, your country brought this disease to our country.
Assume you're sick, so like, what are you doing out of your house type of thing.
Kind of, this kind of very low mentality.
I do think it goes too far sometimes. Like, I was in Kenting watching a whole family of Taiwanese people in the water swimming with masks on. I'm like,
waterboarding themselves.
Yeah. Or people will ride scooters here, they'll have their kids on the scooter, that's dangerous, but fine, with no helmets on.
With a mask.
But they're wearing a mask. And I'm like, are you fucking retarded? Like, what? No, I'm serious.
You know, the R word is not allowed.
I don't care, that's retarded. Wonder what kind of effect it's gonna have on the generation of kids that grew up in masks. The kids that I taught who were like not even one when COVID came around, and they still wear a mask today. There's a kid right there with a mask on, and it's like, what does that do when you're at the age where facial recognition with things like expressions and stuff, and I sound like a conspiracy theorist, I sound like a tinfoil hat conservative boy, but it's a real interesting developmental thing that we've never experimented with in human history, I think. There's so many key developmental areas of your life when you're an infant, and facial recognition is one of them. That's why when you're in an elevator with like a newborn, you know how they just stare at you?
They're learning.
They're just trying to figure out what you're on about, and they might look back at their mom and they're looking back at you and they're trying to see if she's smiling Or is there an intensity in the air that they can sense that and it's real? And if everyone's wearing a mask and they can't get
Stranger
that
danger, whatever you
information,
call it,
yeah,
yeah.
then like what does that mean later on in their development? Maybe it means nothing. We don't know, but I'm curious to see what kind of effect that'll have.
Before we end this, what's up with you guys? What can we see on your podcast or Life in Taiwan and on Prossi's channel?
Lots of travel coming up. I'm going to meet the mayor of Tainan. I'm going to travel to Penghu. I'm also got my son William coming, so we're going to make a lot of videos together. So
Very much looking forward to that. Prossi?
nah.
Well, as always, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Lukas. It starts with L as in like, ends with S as in subscribe. Please do both, and see you all in the next one.
My name is Alan. Starts with A for
Pass.
and ends with N for